but this is Yankey Rants. We're going to hang out for a little bit. This was actually requested, and because we were having a debate in the comment section. And
I'm sorry, I accidentally turned off the song.
Sorry, now the sound's on my phone. There's a delay. All right, but a friend of mine on Facebook recommended that I do a rant show about the topic we were having a debate about on Facebook, that it would be more fun if it was interactive. So I thought that was a good idea because a lot of people are debating this topic today. So the topic I'm talking about is Alexandria. I even looked up how to pronounce her name before the show. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Ocasio is the part I'm iffy on, but I think it's Ocasio. Anywho, we were debating on whether or not the 70% marginal tax rate that she has proposed was a radical idea. And he felt like it was because it would kill industry. And I feel like that's just some bullshit that they're selling you. And I also feel like if you're not for it, then you're not fully understanding what the marginal tax rate means. So it's only above a certain amount of profit that you're taxed at the 70% rate. And you got to keep it in mind. This drives the economy. This is how we got out of the Great Depression. What's up, Robert? Hey, Glenn. Thanks for coming by. But this is how we got out of the Great Depression. Franklin Delano Roosevelt raised the marginal tax rate to 94%. That's what saved our economy. That's what led to the big boom in the infrastructure and all of that, and in the economy turning itself around from the Great Depression was FDR increasing the tax rate. And it took its lowest dip with Ronald Reagan under the whole sales pitch of trickle-down economics, how the companies would make more profit and that would benefit society, that money would trickle down to regular people and help with workers and things like that. But that didn't happen. That's never happened. Nothing's trickled down yet. I don't think that it ever will. It's just not set up that way. That's not the way that they do it. They just keep those profits and then they hide them in offshore accounts so that they don't have to pay taxes on that money at all. They just give their CEOs huge bonuses for increasing profits by firing workers, reducing working conditions, finding ways to do things with less employees, which is the same as firing workers. I don't know why I said that twice, but I guess because of how much they do it. Just like GM closing down all its factories after getting that huge tax cut. It didn't help them. It increased their profit. They were still going to do that. They were going to do that anyway. They probably had that planned for a very long time. Because they're just, until you close, and that's one of the most important things, and that I hope she ties in with her proposal for the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Thank you, Robert. I hope she includes it in her proposal that we need to close these offshore loopholes, because them hiding their tax, hiding all this money, they are profiting off stealing from you. You pay your taxes. I don't see how anybody can't be outraged that billion-dollar corporations are not paying taxes. They're finding ways to avoid paying millions of dollars in taxes that could go to things that we are talking about needing. And that's what we're talking about doing. It's not a radical idea. It's been done before. Matter of fact, like I said before in this conversation, it's been done to a larger percentage of 94. 94% was under Roosevelt. And like I said, that went down over time, but it was 70-something% under Nixon. And that was a Republican government. So it dipped down to 28 under Reagan, which is the lowest it's ever been. It was in the mid to high 30s under Clinton. And then Bush had it down to 33, I believe. And I think Obama raised it to like 36. And everybody threw a fit over that. These people, when they move the money, because it's only over a certain amount, so they'll move that money and park it in different places and park it in investments and things like that, so that when they actually turn in their income statement, they're under the amount and they're not paying tax on that 34%, what they should be paying. They're not paying that anyway. So we need to close that off so that they're at least paying their fucking taxes. Because it's outrageous that companies like Google or GM for that matter aren't paying their fair share in taxes. They're making a profit off Americans being in America and off the America's economy without paying into it, without, like the rest of us do. We pay for these things out of our check without being asked at all. It's just taken directly out. We don't have the option of hiding our paycheck in the Cayman Islands to avoid paying taxes on it. But this person was convinced that a 70% tax rate, marginal tax rate on the 1% of the big corporations, the rich people, the wealthy, the elite, that would ruin the economy, because this person has been convinced since the days of Ronald Reagan that you have to give corporations corporate welfare in order for them to survive and thrive. That's just ridiculous. That's not capitalism. That's corporate welfare. If they can't survive on their own, they should die off and be replaced by somebody that can. That's the way capitalism should work. And if you did it like that, then you wouldn't have to keep them on life support at our expense. This is money owed to you. That's how you should look at it. These people owe this money for being able to operate in society. That's the fee. If they don't like that, they need to take it up with their administrators. And I guess that's what they've done by putting them all in their fucking pocket. Why do I always answer my own questions? I do that often in rants. I'll say something and then realize, why'd you say that? You know why. But a 70% marginal tax rate on the wealthy is not an outrageous or radical idea. I'm completely on board with it. I think we could go higher with it if you want. I definitely don't think we should go any lower with it. 70% sounds fair to me, because you got to understand this is a marginal tax rate, which means it's above a certain amount. Like I think it's $10 million. Money made above, profits above $10 million or income above $10 million is taxed at the marginal tax rate of 70%. Underneath that, you're taxed at the, 34% rate. So it's only on income above a certain amount. And with corporations, I'm sure it's different math. For that I think the 10 million figure was for an income above $10 million a year. Above that amount, you would pay the 70% marginal tax rate. On corporations, I'm not an accountant. I don't know exactly how it works, but here's one of the ways that they don't pay that much. For those of you that think it would cripple their business. So the company, by investing in its employees, can avoid a lot of these taxes with different tax breaks and incentives that they get. So it encourages them to grow their business in America, by the way, in order to either get breaks on these taxes. So they're not going to actually pay the 70% rate anyway, because if you think about it, they're going to have deductions on all that money. They're not paying anything now at 34 or 36 or whatever it's at. So Robert said when Sean lights up smoke, that means he's about to drop truth bombs. It is kind of like fuel. It distracts me. Keeps my mind off looking at what you guys are saying. This, especially during this part when I'm trying to rant on the topic, it's hard not to read the comments. But I am going to get to your comments here in just a second. I'm just going to make a few points on these two topics, and then we'll get to what you guys are saying. But I think the 70% tax rate idea is a great idea. But as long as she ties that in with closing these offshore loopholes and these tax breaks, they need to actually pay their taxes and get their tax breaks the right way by investing in their employees and corporations and around the cities that they're in and the society by paying their fair share of taxes. I almost dropped another F-bomb. I'm going to try to watch that. It's only 6:30 Central Time, so there could be kids watching. You don't want to drop too many F-bombs. The next thing I was going to touch on briefly is Trump's wall. I'm seeing a lot of people debating about Trump's wall. And I've been in a couple conversations with people, and it seems that the people that are fervently behind Trump's wall also are Q supporters, or at least Q believers. They believe that this wall is to stop drug and sex trafficking. They're buying that. I don't see how a wall stops that, but they are passionate believers that Trump is some kind of hero that is trying to cut off on the elite establishment's drug and sex trafficking operations. But this wall is proposed at 5.7 billion, and you know everything goes over budget, especially government projects are going to go over their budget. So you're probably talking about 8 to 10 billion in final costs. And already in the prototypes, I don't know if you saw this, but you can saw through it with a common saw. Anywho, you could also dig under it or climb over it. You know, if it's 100 foot tall, you get a 150-foot ladder, or you fly a plane. And they already dig tunnels. They dig amazing tunnels. So you don't think they can dig a tunnel that's 40 feet deeper than the old tunnel? It's ridiculous. The people that are trafficking and moving drugs are definitely going to figure out a way around a wall. You know, matter of fact, it only covers the ground. So you got all the waters around it. You got all kinds of areas. It's hilarious when you look at it on a map. The wall can't protect you from everything. And it's definitely not going to stop that kind of stuff. Not as much as I would love to see an end to that kind of stuff. And I do know that there exists sex and drug cartels, and they do traffic children, and they do all this stuff. I believe in that. I just don't believe that this wall stops that. I believe this wall is about 8 to 10 million, I estimate, of a waste of money that we could spend on something like healthcare. You know, it's funny how we can't afford healthcare, but we can afford to be talking about about an $8 billion wall. That's just impractical. You know, immigration arrests at the border I saw statistics today, and it made me kind of giggle, because it's just like, oh my God, they've dropped so drastically over the past 20 to 30 years. It's not even, they're trying to make you believe it's a crisis. It's nowhere near a crisis. I think it was something like 28,000 arrests at the border this year or last year. And that was down from like 200 something thousand, like 20 something years ago. I'm getting these numbers wrong, but I think I'm ballparking them. But I just think the wall is ridiculous. And I also think that a lot of these Trump supporters, I don't understand why they don't get this. Trump had control of the government. He had a Republican Congress and Republican Senate. He had complete control of the government. Why didn't he push for the wall during that time? He couldn't get it when they had control of the House and the Senate. Why does he think he's going to get it now? Why is it such an emergency now? Why are we shutting down the government now over this stupid wall? Steve says 5 billion. I know that the estimate, like I said, the estimate's 5.7. That's how much money this wall is supposed to cost. But I'm saying it's going to go over budget. And in ballpark, in the end, it'll probably be around 8. That's my guess. I'm not an engineer, but I know that Trump is not a very good engineer or a real estate planner either. So it's definitely going to go over budget. Man, these cigarettes always put themselves out. I punish myself because I have such a stupid habit, because I smoke these stupid cigarettes. So I punish myself and make myself smoke cheap ones. And they just put themselves out if you don't constantly puff on them. I'm going to go through the comments real quick and see what you guys have been saying. I'm kind of disappointed that the person that asked me to do this isn't here. I hope he comes later. But I wanted that to be more of a back and forth. I think that everybody I'm seeing, at least the names I'm seeing right now, are probably going to be on board with what I was saying. Kind of wanted some people to show up that thought, that maybe even Trump supporters. Share this to some Trump pages. See if we can get some Trump supporters in here, because I would love to hear why it makes sense to have this wall, why you believe in having this wall, because I'm telling you, but what you're going to hear most of is what I've been hearing mostly, and that's these people believing to stop. He's a hero. He's trying to stop sex and drug trafficking, and that's what's behind this wall. And then another thing that I need to mention real quick, just to show that I don't have Trump derangement syndrome, is that Trump's not the only president to ask for this kind of wall, this border fence. The last 3 or 4 presidents have brought up some kind of a border fence. And I just think it's a waste of money. It's not really about Trump. As much as I'm ashamed and embarrassed that Donald Trump is the president of the United States, it's not about Trump. It's just, I think the wall is a huge waste of money, just like our military. Our military budget's a huge waste of money. We don't need to be policing the world. That's ridiculous. You want to tell me you can't afford things? We never talk about what we can't afford when we're talking about war and we're talking about things like that, and welfare for the rich. We're never talking about what we can't afford when we're talking about that. We always talk about what we can't afford when we're talking about entitlement programs like your Social Security that you paid into your entire life, that you are entitled to, which is why it's called entitlement. It's not something you should be able to chip away with. That's what's in the name. You're entitled to it. It's yours as a right in our society. But that's when we run out of money. When we're talking about Social Security and healthcare, we don't have money for that. We can't afford that. Even though the Koch brothers were nice enough to provide a research study that proved that Medicare for all is cheaper than our current system and would save, I forget how much money over the next 10 years, but it was a dramatic amount. It's a lot cheaper and more efficient than our current system. It's just that there's no one to pay off politicians in a Medicare for all system. There's no pharmaceutical companies putting money in politicians' pockets in a Medicare for all system. That all stops. Paul Ryan didn't get to be worth $8 million off of his $200,000 salary. Let's say, I don't know what a senator makes, but let's say it's in the ballpark of $200,000 to $300,000 a year. He didn't make. I think he's worth $57 million is what I saw. But even if it's 10, let's go 10. He didn't make that money off being honest. You don't make money in politics by being honest. But let's see what you guys have been talking about. Steve says, after 10 million, do you really need more? I don't think so. I mean, and I don't think it's unfair. I gotta say, I'll be honest with you. I don't have that much empathy for the rich, but I don't think it's unfair because you are obtaining that wealth based on society. You didn't do that completely on your own. You have to pay into society. I pay into society. I pay my share into society, and I have considerably less money than you. If you can't make it on $10 million, I don't know what to tell you, because you're still going to get 30% of everything you make over that 10 million. And you're going to get more than that because you're going to still, put donations and all that and all your tax write-offs. You're probably going to be somewhere in the ballpark of 45 if they were hitting them at 70. You're going to end up after a good accountant around 40. Whereas right now it's 36, and after a good accountant, you're ending up at 10 to nothing. Don't bullshit me that you're going to pay the 70% anyway. You're never going to pay the 70% rate. Robert says, did you hear England put a spy in Bernie's campaign? No, I did not. Is that true? Jimmy Dore talked about it. Huh. I'm going to have to look that up. No, I hadn't heard that. Steve says the wall is ridiculous. Lori says you can't argue with these people. And then Lori also adds, look at what El Chapo did to get out of prison in Mexico. And the wall is supposed to work. Robert says, thank you for bringing up Trump derangement syndrome. That's the media's fault. It's funny and it's frustrating, but you have to remember that these people are brainwashed. All right. Now, I know this isn't my conspiracy show. That's tomorrow night. But by the way, that's an opportunity for a quick plug. Tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Central, Conspiracy Theories and Chill. Come on by and hang out. But what was I saying? Trump derangement syndrome. These people are brainwashed to believe that he is some kind of villain, when really he's just an accidental doofus that never should have been president. He's not got no more power than any other puppet president. It's just that the establishment lost control of the narrative because we didn't back down and didn't do what we usually do, which is what they were banking on, what they were counting on, and it didn't happen. And Trump won. And they haven't known what to do since. It's been Russiagate, Russia ever since. That's the best they can come up with. They have to figure out some way that this happened. They can't admit that it happened because of them. Robert says, he says we're backing out of Syria and the fake left goes crazy and attacks from the right. Exactly. They're just so conditioned to be against everything that Trump says, that Trump does, that they'll even rise up against things that they should normally agree with, like pulling troops out of Syria. I didn't understand that at all. I'm like, how are you against this? You're only against this because it's Trump doing it. That's all that makes sense. Because nothing you're saying to me makes any sense. None of your reasons that you're giving me make any sense. It just sounds like you've been conditioned to be terrified and of this orange clown man that happens to be our president right now. The whole system got derailed. That's how Trump became president. I firmly believe that. I hope some Trump people came because I want you to prove me wrong on that if you don't believe me. But the majority of America did not vote for Donald Trump. The majority of Americans are not Trump supporters. Most Republicans that voted for Donald Trump only voted for him because Republicans will vote for any Republican. Republicans are loyal. That's one thing that I would have to give Republicans over Democrats is Republicans will pull together. You know, they'll vote for somebody they don't fully support just because they got an R next to their name. Not that there's not a lot of Democratic voters that do that too, will vote for any Democrat. But Republicans, I think, are more loyal. At least what I've seen. They will tend to defend even the worst of Republicans. Lori says, look at the fancy homes Bernie has. He has some bucks. They all have deep pockets in Congress, she says. All right, well, let's talk about Bernie's homes real quick. I think it was $300,000. Isn't that what Bernie makes a year? Isn't that his salary, $300,000? So, and then isn't Jane involved in some college? And she worked too. So already they make a good living. So you can live well in this country off of, let's say, just Bernie's salary, $300,000 a year. You could buy a nice house in Vermont, a very nice house for $300,000. Then you add in the fact that he writes books. Hell, he's even got a folk album out. You know, there's other income coming in off of Bernie Sanders. So yeah, there's no stretch of the imagination how he could have personally afford his properties, especially when you factor in that the one that he got most recently was given to Jane in a will. Someone had died in Jane's family and left it to her. So, you know, I don't make a big deal out of Bernie's success because I think Bernie has a modest level of success. He has exactly, I can look at it and the math makes sense to me. I'm not looking at it and going, well, where'd the money for that come from? You know, everything that he's got, I can see how he afforded it on his salary. Jane inherited one house, yes, Steve. The last one that they got, the one that they got right after the 2016 primary, that everybody tried to say that he sold us out for that house, that was inherited. Jane inherited that house from a relative. Lori says the media loves all the people arguing about inane things that we can do nothing about. It is not the particular puppet in power, it's the whole system. Our government does not work for we the people. And she's right. It's our government has been taken over by corporations and by the elite. It's more than that. We'll get into that tomorrow night. But for now, we'll just stay on the top level because I don't want to scare people off. You got to at least get on board with me that our government has been taken over by big money interests. If you're not on board to at least that, then I'm going to lose you right now. But they are in control of everything that you read and see. All of the media that you get is through 6 corporations. You can look this up for yourself. And you can flip around in the channels if you want to do a little research on your own. You can see this too. They report on the same stories. The only thing that's different is the opinion that they give on that story. You're getting the same narrative no matter what you watch. If you watch Fox, you're getting the Republican crazy, the extremist side of the Republican view. If you watch CNN, you're getting the Clinton News Network. You're getting a Democratic view. Just depends on what flavor you want. If you're getting your news from establishment sources, you are getting the same news. You're getting the same narrative. and you're being sold the same lie. It goes that deep. It's all the way through to your media, to everything, to the government, to your media, to everything you see and what's in control of you is owned by big money interests. You got to at least be on board with that. Otherwise, I don't know what to tell you, because I think there's so much evidence for that our country is bought and paid for. Steve says Jimmy Carter lives in a $167,000 house. Jimmy Carter is a great man. I'm fully on board with that, and I can't say enough good about him. Jimmy Carter is a good hero for anybody. He's definitely someone to look up to. He's a selfless person. Yeah, I love Jimmy Carter too. Lori says, I love Jimmy Carter. I do too. Robert says, where do you stand on Harris, Rubin, and Peterson leaving Patreon after Sargon was kicked for saying the N-word? Harris, Rubin, and Peterson. I don't know who those three people are, but I do know what you're talking about with Sargon. And in the context that he said it too, I'm fully on board with Patreon removing him. The way he said it is unacceptable, and I think Patreon has the right to remove him from the Patreon site for that. And I'm sure that's probably surprising, because that seems like it's an attack on his free speech, but it's not. Not in this particular instance, I don't think, because people are giving him money. Maybe I got to backpedal a little bit. Maybe they should let the people that are giving him money know what he did. Maybe force him to make some kind of disclosure to people, because it was a clearly racist statement and it was used in a completely inappropriate way. Even though he wasn't using it aimed at minorities, he was using it, I don't even want to say, but it might as well have been, because he was comparing it. He was comparing people to the N-word. Now that means that he believes, you see what I mean? Make the connection for yourself. Don't force me to do it. I don't want to get kicked. I don't want to get kicked for hate speech. But no, I don't stand with them leaving Patreon. I would stay with Patreon. I don't think Patreon's doing anything wrong as an organization. I wouldn't want to be associated with that either if I was them. And, is this the first thing that he did? Is this the only violation of Patreon standards? That's another thing that you kind of want to know. But I can kind of see Patreon kicking him for saying the N-word in the context that he said it. And Steve Sargon is a podcaster, I believe, political commentator, basically. And he was on an interview with someone else. He wasn't on his own show. He was on an interview with someone else. And he was, I don't remember who he was describing. Maybe Robert can help me. But in his analogy, he dropped the N-word, I think a couple times. And Patreon removed him from their site. Patreon, if you don't know this, Patreon is a crowdfunding site where you can support things like podcasts. A lot of podcasts that use it. I'm on Patreon. Hit if you want to support me. But you can support shows that you like through Patreon. It's crowdfunding, basically. Kind of like Kickstarter, but for independent media. And they don't want to be associated with him anymore because of these comments. And I'm telling you, there's got to be more. I haven't listened to his actual show. I don't know if he's hateful or not. I don't know what else there is, but I'm telling you, there's got to be more, right? Or is that just it, Robert? Was it just the N-word thing, or was there more? Was it kind of like Alex Jones, where he had broken community standards a lot of times? And I'll tell you why I don't think it's wrong for them to break ties with him as well. When it happened to Alex Jones, it was Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all social media. And we become dependent on social media the same way you would be dependent on the mail. You need it. Especially in independent media, you have to have it. And they have a monopoly on each one of those styles of media. They have a monopoly on it. So I felt it's wrong for those reasons. Patreon is not the only way you can do independent funding for your shows. So Sargon has the option of going to other sites, because Patreon is not a giant. I mean, they might be the biggest right now for that type of thing, but there are other funding sites that he could use. He's not cut off. So I guess that's why I look at it differently, because he can still fund through, even as simple as PayPal, but he can fund through GoFundMe, all kinds of things. I'm sure there's more than Patreon. If there's not, that would change my opinion. But I feel like Patreon is, and that kind of thing is in such an infancy stage that there's got to be competition. And as long as there's competition, it's okay. If there's nowhere else for Sargon to go, then I start feeling like it's not okay. So I guess I don't have that clear of a opinion on it. I thought I had a lot clearer of an opinion on it because I tend to get so triggered when I hear that word, especially using a negative context, because it's just so ignorant. So, and it's just one of those things where you're shameful. It's just the shame that even exists, that there's a time in our society and that my race was responsible for those things. All those things coupled together, I just don't like. I just have this taste for it. It turns me off in such a way that I think I just didn't care much for whether or not I agreed with him, or rather agreed with what Patreon had done to him. Lori says he bought that vacation home ceding to Hillary. I'm sorry again, but he did not buy that home. Jane inherited that house. I promise you. I would not lie to you, Lori. Jane inherited that house. You can look that up. He did not go out and buy a house with our election money. I think it's, do you, before I even assume, I don't want to assume, because, I had a teacher, an algebra teacher, that told me once, it was the only thing I learned in his class, because I did not learn algebra, was that when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. So I try not to assume. But based on what you're saying so far, do you believe that Bernie sold us out for money? Are you on board with that theory that Bernie sold us out, that he knew about it the whole time, that he turned on us, that he stabbed us in the back? Is that the way you believe it went down? Gregoria says, you went inside and I was still listening. Robert, you need to think of others, mister. That is super rude. I'm glad she called you out for that, because you're pretending you were still here, but you weren't. And I was responding to your comment for a long time, even though I babbled and was all over the place. But that's just the thing that happens when you do a live show and you have a shitty memory. You either take a lot of notes or you stumble around. And my notes are only half a page for this, so you stumble around. Let's see, what else have you guys been saying? By the way, thanks for checking in with us, Gregoria. I hope I'm saying your name right. I always worry when I pronounce names, and especially original names like yours, and I always worry about it because I'm like, oh my God, I hope I'm not tripping all over this. Because I have a simple name. Who can't say, everybody knows Sean. I have a common name. If you're walking down the hallway and you yell Sean, 3 people turn around. You know what I mean? It's boring to have such a common name. I kind of wish I had a more original name. But the most important thing to my mom about my name was she didn't want names that you could shorten. She was against nicknames. So she wanted us to have names that couldn't be shortened down to a nickname. That was her rule with names. So I ended up with Simple Sean. But I've made use of it, even though I wish I had a more interesting name. Steve says certain subjects are taboo on mainstream media. If they mention it, they are immediately fired. He's right about that. And if you don't know what some of those are, one big one would be Israel. You are really not allowed to criticize Israel at all. People just stay away from it. You probably noticed that you don't ever hear really anything negative about Israel, and they're actually moving to make it illegal to speak about Israel. And why would that be? Think about that. Just, if you don't want to go any deeper, you don't want to go into Zionism or anything like that, just think about why would it be that they want to make it illegal to speak negatively about Israel. Is it because we're giving them $38 billion a year? You don't want everybody to know that. Why are we doing that? You know? I bet your average person doesn't know that. And that's something that should be common knowledge. $11 million a day is what we give Israel. It's another thing we have endless money for. And that's just ridiculous. We always have money for that kind of stuff. We don't ever have money for the people. But is anyone here that disagrees with me? Did Lori leave? Because I don't think she ever answered me if she believes. I hope she didn't think I was going to attack her, because I never would. I just really wanted to talk about it, because I don't think Bernie sold us out. I don't. I was hurt at first. I'm not going to lie. I know exactly what you went through, because I went through it too. I was hurt for a while. It took me a long time to come around and come to terms with what I now feel he had to do. He really did. He had to do it. And if he wouldn't have done it, if he would have done what we wanted him to do, it wouldn't have worked. For one, the media would have crushed him. All right. You have to realize how brainwashed the average person is by the media. So they're going to look at him as crybaby Sanders. The average person still believes that Hillary beat Bernie legitimately in the primary. You're still having those arguments with people. So you think that people would actually believe that he wasn't just being a baby and a sore loser that couldn't take take his responsibility and do what he had promised to do, what he ended up having to do, which was support Hillary Clinton? So I don't know. I don't know how you can think that Bernie didn't have to do that. I think if Bernie would have went third party, the media, for one, like I just said, would have crushed him. And then I think there wasn't enough of us. We needed them. You got to understand, as many of us as it feels like there are, it's only because most of us operate in circles where that is dominant. That does not happen to be what's dominant on the grander scale. You know, there's a lot of us, don't get me wrong, and there's more and more of us every day. And I think the younger generation that's coming to be voters are going to be a lot more of that type of person. But we are not the majority right now, and we need the average voter on board with us, whether that be Democrat or Republican. In this instance, it happens to be Democrat, because right now that's the side that is at least pretending it's for the people. So that is the side that Bernie will run in if he runs again. So, and I will support him if he runs again, and I don't think he sold us out. And if Lori does happen to still be here, I would love to hear your views on it, and I would read it, and I will not attack you. Robert says Gregory is a straight up hoe, y'all. He is. They got a crazy relationship. They have a great relationship. I like watching their relationship on Facebook, because they have the kind of relationship where you can say that, and not a lot of people do. You know what I mean? Where they'd actually get it. You know, you got a spouse that gets you. That's rare. I happen to have one too, so I'm not super jealous, but I know it when I see it. And you guys have that kind of relationship too. At least if you don't, you're at least really good at faking it on Facebook, because I realize that I don't know you much deeper than that. I mean, I've been on your show a couple times. Robert hosts the Right to Reason podcast, and I've been on your show a couple times. We've had some conversations outside of that, but for all I know, you could be a jerk. You just always seem cool to me. Steve says nobody can talk about 9/11. It's the big no-no. That's true too. And if I'm remembering correctly, didn't Dan Rattle out of trouble for bringing something up about 9/11 when he wasn't supposed to? I don't know if that's true or not, but I want to say that Dan Rather, one of the big reasons why he lost his anchor position at least was because of 9/11. Robert says you're cool too, buddy. Thank you. Thank you, pal. You know, I still haven't gotten in touch with that musician you told me about. I feel like he's going to reject me. I don't know why. That's what it is. I'm like, he's like I never wanted to approach girls when I was younger, because I was always had this fear of rejection. And I think I got that too over this. So I'm like, what if he doesn't think I'm cool enough to do music for my show? But Robert was trying to hook me up with this guy, and I'm going to contact him. I'm just being cute right now, but I haven't. I'm going to contact him, but I actually am nervous that he's going to reject me. So I wasn't being super cute. I was being kind of honest. But he's going to hook me up with this guy that's going to make music for me. So I used to use real music. Like tonight I played that Watsky song, and I used to use Mr. Crowley for my conspiracy theory show. And Facebook would kick me when I would do that, and it took me forever to figure it out. But once I finally figured it out that it was over the music, I realized I had to make my own, and it sucked. So that's the long way of saying I need this musician guy to accept me. So I have something cool to play for you guys while you wait for me to start rambling, for those of you that like that. But now I do think I ran Lori off. That makes me sad. I hope she didn't think I was going to attack her. That bums me out because she's a pretty big fan of the show. She comes around a lot. So that makes me sad. Well, let's see. Is anyone here currently that thinks that we need a border wall? You know, is there any opposing views to mine that would like to speak up? This is the time to do it. I will fairly read your comments and respond to you, just like I said I would do with Lori. You know, and I hope she's still here and just not able to talk. Maybe like Robert, walked away from the computer. I have been rambling a while. But if I turned her off, sometimes I do that, you know. You have strong opinions, sometimes you turn people off with them. But like I said, I'm okay with disagreeing. I'd like to talk. I want to understand why you think that. Is the short version of what I should have said, or what I should have said rather. I want to understand why you think that way. I want to understand and talk to you about why you think Bernie sold us out. You know, just like I would debate and listen to anyone's views on any subject. Matter of fact, I had a guy was debating me about 9/11 recently. It started on the show and spread over in the Facebook post, and then he invited me into a group, and then just fizzled out. Nothing. I'm totally willing to debate and be shown I'm wrong on anything I believe in, and 9/11 is the one I believe in the most. So I would like for you to show me evidence that contradicts what I believe happened, because what I believe happened is a very uncomfortable truth. You know, it's not comfortable believing it. A lot of people think that I've been told that people have conspiracies because they want to be comforted. You know, they want to feel it's a comforting thought, you know, a way to explain all the evil in the world when you just say, oh, it's all evil because it's ran by this evil cabal. You know, whatever makes you more comfortable. I don't understand how that makes you comfortable, but I'm just saying, I've been told that it's like comfort food to believe in conspiracies. I don't believe that's true. I believe it's more rational to believe in that kind of stuff. And I don't even think that's what I started out talking about. I get distracted by your comments because I can't look at this while I'm doing it. I haven't figured that out yet. So if I want it to be cool and have a little picture over here, I have to look at the screen. It's just me on there, and I got it up on my phone where I see your comments. So that's scrolling below me, and it catches my attention every once in a while and distracts me and makes me sound like an idiot. And that's why Robert doesn't do live shows. He's told me before he's afraid. It's scary. Because sometimes you do, and you never know. You never know. Because you don't get the comfort of writing it down. Now, you can write some of it, but at some point you're going to have to wing it. And there's just so many distractions. Because you probably wouldn't believe this either, but I don't have a super cool studio. I'm in my bedroom. So I'm looking at a lot of regular things all around me and talking to a little box, you know, on top of my computer screen. It's kind of a weird experience, but it's cool. I like doing it, especially when people are talking, which people aren't doing right now. Hold on. Robert said Gregoria eats the butt. Uh-oh. That's a keeper then. That's a good girl. Christopher says peace. Mrs. says peace. Welcome, guys. We've been talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I just butchered the shit out of that. But her 70% marginal tax rate on the rich and Trump's wall, or anything you want. This is where I've already ranted about both of those things. We can talk about whatever you guys want to. So bring up whatever you want in the comments, and we'll get into it. Or if you have a contradicting opinion to anything I've said, go ahead and mention that too. And if you show up late, feel free to still say so, because I'll still be here and I'll be glad to talk to you about it. Because again, I'm always willing to have my mind changed. I'm not arrogant enough to believe that I'm always right. If I can be shown that I'm wrong, I will willingly accept it. And I can't have my mind changed. I just happen to have these beliefs. But people come around and they want to tell you you're crazy. Okay, you think I'm crazy, but tell me why my belief is wrong. Prove to me that it's wrong to believe this and in an acceptable way and help me move forward. If it's so crazy and I'm so simplistic minded for believing in it, it should be very easy for you to show me how I'm wrong. So why can't you do that? Why is that outrageous? To request that when someone calls you crazy that they explain why. When they can't do that, don't they wonder, maybe I've been conditioned to think this type of thinking is crazy, and maybe this type of thinking is not crazy and it's completely rational? I don't know, but I'm babbling. That's more tomorrow talk. That's tomorrow I do a conspiracy theory show called Conspiracy Theories and Chill. And it's at 6:30 p.m. Central on Friday nights. And this week I don't know what we're going to be talking about yet, but I will come up with something by 6:30 p.m. tomorrow night, and we will hang out for about an hour. We usually watch a video and then hang out and talk about the video, anything else you guys want, any conspiracies you want. So feel free to come tomorrow and bring conspiracies to talk about and participate in the show, because the more you guys participate, the longer I can go. Because if I'm not getting any comments, I fizzle out of ideas to talk about. But if I'm getting good comments, I can go for a while because I feed off of that. So feel free to comment tomorrow and now. But let's see. We've been going for about 50 minutes. What is the craziest conspiracy theory that I believe? Robert wants to know. The craziest. I guess it kind of depends on what you consider to be crazy, but I think with NASA being fake, that I don't believe in anything from NASA. I think a lot of what you're shown and told about outer space is fake and made up bullshit. So that's probably the craziest conspiracy that I believe. And that would include the faking of the moon landings. But I can go further than that because I believe a lot of outer space is bullshit. Just CGI pictures. And I love when they tell you about oceans on Pluto. Shut the fuck up. You don't know what the hell is on Pluto. You're making shit up. I really like that show, The Cosmos, with Neil deGrasse Tyson, until the episode where he was going through the oceans of Jupiter. You're bullshitting me at this point. You don't fucking know what's on Jupiter. And that made me mad, and I had to stop watching it, and it was a really good show. But I was like, nah, you just bullshit me. You're in the spaceship of the imagination, and you're telling me that about the oceans of Jupiter. You can't possibly know what the fuck you're talking about right now. I don't believe you can anyway. I don't believe that I've been shown enough evidence that you can show me what the oceans are like on Pluto. They're talking about, I read something yesterday about some kind of oceans on Pluto. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. This is just made up bullshit. That's probably my craziest. The regular person would probably think that's crazy. Is that what you were looking for? Ooh, on board with me. Robert says NASA was founded by the Nazis. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I'm glad you're at least that on board with me. There is a lot of shady involving NASA. The NASA logo is satanic. It has satanic imagery in it. All of their patches have Freemason imagery on them. But then now I'm stretching. I'm on board, but a lot of people, I lost them because they think Freemasons is just that neat little club in your town. And it is, for the most part. The lower levels. Steve says, Pedo Podesta is the creepiest. That is a creepy one, and I am on board with that. They need to be locked up. The Podesta brothers I was gonna research. Well, I am researching a video to make on them, but I don't know. I'm still on the fence of what angle I'm gonna take on it. But anyways, I definitely agree with you that they are definitely into some sick shit, and I think there's plenty of evidence that they are at least into some sick shit. They're at least into pedophile art, well and way into pedophile art. Steve says I disagree on NASA, but it's okay. Good, because I like having you around as a fan, and it's okay to disagree with people about stuff. You know, I wish people weren't so quick to just turn someone off when the first time you disagree with them. Now there are some core beliefs that maybe couldn't. I can't, like I say, I can't be friends with a racist. You know what I mean? As soon as I find out you're racist, I'm gonna lose all respect for you. So I can't say I don't have my limits, but I try to be open-minded. I try to keep people around that I disagree with, you know, as long as they're civil to me and we can still be friends. I don't see why we can't. You know, you can disagree about things. Robert says I got to go. See you later, man. Thanks for coming. Jeff says George Carlin used to say "nassholes." Mm-hmm. Yeah, he didn't come out and fully say exactly what he might have thought, but you could tell that he was talking about there's some bullshit coming out of NASA. That's a bullshit organization, I think. Robert was asking me what my craziest conspiracy that I believe. Because I had mentioned that tomorrow night at 6:30, we're going to have a Conspiracy Theories and Chill show. So I hope you guys will come back for that. And thanks for coming to talk about the wall and the tax rate. Does anybody want to talk about anything else before we wrap up? We've been going about an hour. We can keep going. I just need stuff to talk about. I was hoping that more people would show up that agreed with the wall or that were against the tax rate, but it's just been people so far that are pretty on board with it, unless they're just not speaking up. So maybe we could share this to some more Trump groups or something. I don't know, because I'm not saying that because I want to make fun of them. I want you to explain it to me, because I know there are people that passionately believe that this wall is a good idea. So I want you to explain to me not only how it's a good idea, but how it makes sense. Because I don't think it's either. I don't think it's a good idea, and I don't think it makes any sense. And then on the 70% tax rate, I'm fully for it. And I don't find it to be a radical idea. But that was just a recap on how I felt on those two issues that we talked about tonight. But if there's anything you guys would like to rant about before we wrap up, anything that's got you bummed or pissed off lately that you want me to bring up, excuse me, we'll get into it. We can keep going. I was going to go the whole time Babies was at her exercise class, so we can keep going if you want. But in the meantime, I'll tell you a few ways to support the shows. Liking and sharing, that supports the show, and it happens to be free. So like and share. And one way, if you want to do a little more for me, over here on the side, I've been having this picture with me on things and stuff on it. That's my YouTube channel. I would really appreciate it if you would go over to my YouTube channel and check out a video or two, like and share a video or two. That would help me tremendously. That's one of my main goals right now, is I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel. So do that for me. And if you're watching this on YouTube, share and comment. That helps me show up better on YouTube in their algorithm. So participate in the show, basically, is a great way to support me. I'm also on Patreon. I didn't add the link in the description. I will tomorrow night in tomorrow night's show. But I'm on Patreon. You can support the shows through Patreon. Or you can also, I'm also on PayPal. I had a link for that at a later date too. But I would just appreciate it if you like, share, and participated. So Steve says I shared to a Trump group, so you might get some comments later on. I hope so. That would be cool, because I would like for there to be a discussion. I was actually asked to do this by a Facebook friend, like I talked about this earlier, but he didn't come. Like, I guess he's busy right now, but hopefully he comes later and we can have more of a discussion. I wanted him to be here live though, because that's what he wanted. You know, he wanted to have this discussion live. He didn't really want to have it in the comment section. So I tried, Clinton, if you come later. But I guess I'm going to go ahead and wrap up because everybody's just kind of not saying anything. So I will be back tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. Central for Conspiracy Theories and Chill. Thank you guys so much for coming. If you come here late, make sure you comment. Go ahead and comment, and I will talk back and forth with you. We can still have a discussion about this. So thanks for coming, and I'll see you guys tomorrow night on Conspiracy Theories and Chill.